Hello, this is Stephen McFadden. I'm an independent journalist, and it's my pleasure to share with you a slideshow that I put together for the Sustainable and Resilient Resources Roundtable. The Roundtable's been considering the possibilities of systems collapse at smaller or greater scale throughout the year, and I was invited to present on how CSA farms might fare in such difficult circumstances. So that's it. Those are the central questions for the learning journey of this slideshow. Can CSA help mitigate or ease the hard effects of systems collapse? And what steps might people take now to employ CSA amidst the disruptive changes in climate, economics, and food systems? Sandra Faber, the founder of the Earth Futures Institute, took on the topic as the first presenter in this roundtable series, and she suggested that our current focus should be on navigating the collapses that are already underway and preparing for more, working to shape the outcome. One way to approach that challenge, she suggested, was to develop realistic models and scenarios for coping. CSA, in my view, is definitely an important model in that regard. Well, it's possible, of course, to present a lot of evidence to show that climate change is moving very fast and having a profound impact. Here I want to offer just one sample. It comes from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. The Guardian newspaper surveyed them at the beginning of the month of May 2024. And they reported that they are envisaging a semi-dystopian future with famines, conflicts, and mass migration. All of that's already happening, of course, but intensification driven by heat waves, drought, wildfires, floods, and storms of great intensity and frequency. One of the panel members, Greta Pessel of the University of Tasmania, made a stark statement. She thinks we're headed for major societal disruption within the next 5 years. Let's hope that's not the case, but in any case, we need to be aware of the possibility, and CSA involvement, I think, is one helpful way for engaging with that possibility. Indulge me for a moment, if you will, while I go back to the fundamentals here and observe simply that farms are a foundation upon which all the other elements of civilization stand. We've got to have the food first, and our farms and fishing waters are obviously our sources, and likewise there have obviously been many thousands of ways that human beings have drawn sustenance from the land and from the waters. In our era, let's say the last 60 years or so, there has been an evolution of what might be termed LSPAs. That's an acronym for Local Solidarity-Based Partnerships for Agroecology, clean and just ways of producing food. Now, CSAs, food coops, and food co-ops, and community kitchens are all models and forms that fit under that broad umbrella of LSPA, and that can be, I believe, helpful ways of reckoning with the consequences of system collapse. So here's the key thing, at least in my mind, that people who are involved in LSPAs, whether they're producers or consumers, recognize the vital importance of their social connections, in addition to what technological solutions might be available. So that requires an increased commitment on the part of everyone. Well, here's just a quick picture of, the elephant in the middle of the room, the techno solutions coming forth from these multinational corporations, generally driven by profits, but also apparently with some level of recognition of how dire things are becoming with the climate and all of the disruptions that are occurring. In my mind, not enough, not strong enough, not making a big enough difference. But there are 8 billion of us on the planet, and these are the institutionals, expressions that are producing most of the food at the moment. But for this presentation, we're looking on a much smaller scale at the community level. And so I offer here a slide that I borrowed from the Eco-Agriculture Partners, just explaining that a community of practice is a group of people who share common concerns or problems, and they come together to fulfill not just group goals, but also their individual goals. I believe that CSA definitely falls under that category, at least in the ideal sense. It's a community of practice, a free will association of households with a farm or farms. The community supports the farm, and the farm supports the community. That was an original ideal. I know there's been tremendous emphasis over the last 25 years or so to regard CSA as a marketing plan, and that's obviously been necessary for a lot of farms to continue operating. But I think in dire circumstances, systems collapse. The idea of community of practice, where it's not a business plan, but a community plan to provide clean, fresh food, obviously not in the systems collapse, all of a person's diet, but an important supplement to enhance their health and the health of the soil, the animals, and give everyone an opportunity to respond intelligently and cooperative to whatever changes may be taking place, whether it's in climate, finance, or just social changes. At this point, CSA has become a mature social movement. Or maybe we could use maturing. It's become a maturing social movement. I think we have further to go. With a recognized place at the United Nations. That quote comes from Jocelyn Perot. He's the General Secretary of Urgency, and you can see the URL down at the bottom of the slide. That's an international network or hub for CSA or LSPA resources. And I want to thank Jocelyn and his colleague Judith Hitchman for corresponding with me and sharing a lot of information that will be coming up in the future slides. I should mention that the United States connection representative to Urgency is Elizabeth Henderson, who many listeners will recognize as the author of Sharing the Harvest, a book that has been and continues to be enormously influential with the development of CSA. Well, here's an overview of CSA. Right now, according to Urgency, there are about 1.5 to 2 million CSA members globally. That survey actually goes back a few years to 2020. And I did the math, divided 2 million into the approximately 8 billion of us wandering around on the planet, and it came out to 0.025%, a homeopathic dosage of CSA participants. Right now, or actually as of 2020, CSA development was strong in Europe and Brazil. China is experiencing growth. Here in North America and also Japan, where the models over 50 or 60 years along, homeostasis. Things are neither expanding rapidly nor declining, holding steady. While there are isolated initiatives around the world, and you can see the various nations and regions listed, interestingly, virtually every CSA worldwide reported a huge surge in interest during the COVID-19 crisis, and that was followed by a period of smaller increase. And then as the crisis waned, a decrease. Now, here's some statements that I regard as quite important in terms of considering how CSA farms might fare amidst systems collapse. This is from Jocelyn. He said, he wrote, in many countries, CSA was designed to provide solutions in the midst of crisis. It's in the genes of CSA to experiment with solutions. The simplicity and lightness of CSA make it fairly easy to establish, especially in a situation of collapse. And CSA puts the emphasis on human relationships, care, and trust, all of which inevitably become central values in a situation of economic and environmental collapse. That's generally true. When a disaster strikes, people tend to come together and to support one another. Not in every instance, of course, but I think as a general pattern, that's very encouraging about our human condition. Just want to mention quickly that CSA is adaptable to local resources and circumstances, and mention also that there are some pre-existing communities in the world that may not be involved with CSA right now. Those are neighborhoods, I think businesses where people work together, and also religious institutions such as churches, mosques, temples, synagogues, and so forth. There's already a community. People know each other. They know how to cooperate to accomplish what the goals of that particular institution might be. And if there should be tremendous difficulties with the supply chain, as happened with COVID-19, they could turn attention and resources to food production, and the CSA model is adaptable to that. Well, here's my take on the core ideas. I developed them in partnership with the late Trauger Groh, an enormously gifted and insightful farmer who was a neighbor of mine in Temple and New Ipswich, New Hampshire, years ago. So not everyone sees these as the ideas or ideals that they want to pursue, but in a case of systems collapse, shared risk, community involvement, associative economics, and ultimately the land held in trust and protected from development made available to people who feel the authentic vocational call to touch the earth on our behalf. I think of these farmers as our ambassadors to the earth, and it's our opportunity and our responsibility to support them that they might touch the earth in a beautiful way, in a loving way, in a clean way. So associative economics is undoubtedly a new term for lots of people. It's a concept that grew out of the work of Rudolf Steiner, the philosopher whose work underlies biodynamics, anthroposophy, and the Waldorf schools. Well, here in the economic realm, the question is not how can our farm operation increase profits this year, but instead three focused points. What does the farm need to prosper? What do the active farmers need to do their jobs and to prosper? And what does the community need for it to prosper? So those three questions guide the way. They are, I feel, especially helpful when things are tough, when those become the questions. So there are lots of challenges. This is just a sketch of 4 or 5 possible ones. I know many who are watching this slideshow will think of others, and I invite you to communicate, put them in the comments so that we can learn what you see. Of course, it takes time. I would say the minimum to get a CSA up and running is a year, and of course it takes time to prepare the land and to get the farm going. Do people in the community have the skills? You can't farm just reading a book. You need experience. It takes time. It's a beautiful, high skill. And on the part of the community, it requires a real commitment, an active free will to be there and to help the farm go forward through the difficult circumstances. If there's a financial collapse or inflation has just gone so far out of whack that no one can afford that monetary exchange, the group would need to establish forms of barter or labor exchange in order to keep the farm and the farmers going so that they can support the community. Now, if a massive climate change impact comes along, here I'm thinking of the host of tornadoes that has been ripping across the heartland of the USA over this month of May 2024. And when it takes out a farm, poof, there it's gone. And there are also, hurricanes, floods, droughts, massive impacts that can totally crush a farm. The only difference, I think, with the CSA is that you theoretically have a community there to help with restoration, to help put the pieces back together and become productive again. In really extreme circumstances, there could be roaming gangs and militias that are out to steal food and other sustaining elements for the community. And obviously a CSA would need to devise ways to protect itself and to protect its resources that it might continue to be productive. Enacting Resilience is the title of a report that Urgency produced toward the tail end of the COVID-19 crisis. They surveyed CSAs or LSPAs around the world, and they found that they are resilient, in fact, and they proved it during the crisis. They could provide continuity of food production and distribution, and they supported the food producers through the crisis. They found a way. One of the clearest results, the LSPAs stood firm in a stumbling world. They were able to maintain services in most countries, address increased demand in membership and volunteering, and implement necessary changes to their operation. So it was the flexibility of the CSA model gave them the ability to navigate unforeseen circumstances that arose within the context of the collapse of the supply chains and of the crisis. Well, here, shifting back again to the realm of the ideal, I offer a quote from Ilya Prigogine, who was a Nobel laureate in chemistry, and he said, when a complex system is far from equilibrium, think of the global food system, small islands of coherence in a sea of chaos have the capacity to shift the entire system to a higher order. 'Tis devoutly to be wished. I love that idea. I guess it's up to all of us to cultivate and develop our islands of coherence and hope that in that way they can become influential, not just at the community level, but also on that vast industrial agriculture, industrial finance scale, waking them up, wake up to a realization of what's going on and the necessity to reckon with it. Okay, well, what islands would you need? Here's the question. And what steps would you take if you perceive systems collapse, greater or larger, greater or smaller? So what steps would you take to develop food system resilience in your community? I invite you to add your observations and suggestions in the comments section. I will compile them and publish them with this slideshow, and we can use our CI, our community intelligence, to create a community resource. The corporations are using artificial intelligence, but we have our own resource, the hive mind, community intelligence. Well, here's one resource. Of course, there's urgency.net, but also from the Johns Hopkins Center for a Livable Future, a food system resilience guide. And if you don't have time to write down the URL at the bottom of the page, you can just search out that Center for a Livable Future and access the document that way. Well, thanks for listening. I want to close this presentation by mentioning this just a provocation, an opportunity to think about these things, and an opportunity to contribute through the hive mind to thoughts and resources on planning for the potential of systems collapse. I long ago was struck by the profundity and beauty of the Declaration of Nyaleni, a declaration that was agreed upon in 2007 by an international cast of visionaries gathering in an African village. Their vision was that agroecology means that we stand together in the circle of life, and the LSPAs and the CSAs are definitely part of that circle and part of bringing people together to reckon with whatever challenging circumstances may arise. The vision that animates agroecology is respect for the necessary equilibrium among nature, human beings, and the cosmos. Thank you for that declaration, and thank you, listeners, for listening.